Hello, everyone. This is Gail Estella, and welcome to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Here's where we turn pain into purpose, because survival isn't a whisper, it's a roar. Before we get started, there's a couple of things I would like for you to do for me. I would like for you to like. I need you to go in and like, comment, and share the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Where are you tuning in from? Put in the comment box below where you're tuning in from. I'm here in Aiken, South Carolina. Hey, are you following me on all of my social platforms? Are you following me on all of my social media platforms? If not, go in and do so. Have you purchased your copy of Through It All? If you haven't, you're not too late. It's not too late. You can go to TrueVinePublishingCompany.org, Amazon.com, and anywhere books are sold. July is the month of independence, but here, freedom isn't a holiday. It's a healing process. All month long, my guests will be sharing their stories on how they truly became free through it all. My guest for today, this gentleman, I have been seeing him on Facebook. He's been popping up on my timeline, and I noticed something different about him. It wasn't his physical appearance, but it was something radiating from the inside. And if you know what that means, we'll talk about all of that later. I am going to allow him to tell you a little bit about himself. Mr. Alvin Murdock.
Thank you first and foremost, for having me on your show. Last week, when we talked on the phone, we talked for about 30 minutes and it felt like we already did the show. But at any rate, I'm a native of Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm an only child. I served in the military. And I served as a pastor for 12 years here in the Rock Hill area. And I stepped down from ministry for about 12 years. And in fact, this past Sunday would have been my pastoral anniversary, had I not stepped down from ministry. One of the key things that caused me to step down from ministry was the death of my oldest son. It was like a very traumatic experience for my wife at the time and I. And, it's really easy and lazy sometimes when it comes to trauma and how we carry trauma. It's very convenient sometimes to say that this one incident is what caused me to go off the rails, is what caused me to crash out. And it's really not that simple, but like I said, it's easier for our testimony or for our narrative if we just say, well, this happened to me, then I ended up over here. But a lot of times there's so many blocks that just are piled up and then they just come tumbling down, right?
Come tumbling down. So let's go back. First, let me say, I'm sorry for the death of your son. And you said your oldest son. And here at the Gail Estella Survival Podcast, we like to call names because his name matters. So what's his name?
Alvin Thomas Murdock III, and we called him Trey.
Trey. Yes. Alvin Thomas Murdock III. Trey.
Yes.
A nice name. How old was he when he passed?
4.5 years old.
He was very young.
Yes.
So do you mind telling us about his journey or sharing with us his journey?
Yeah, I definitely don't mind sharing with you. First of all, I want to acknowledge that this is a experience that you and I share in common, the loss of a child, which is a very unnatural thing because naturally we think that children are supposed to bury their parents, not parents burying their children. So, but to share his story with you, my son was born with a chromosome disorder called trisomy 18. So there were already some struggles to begin with. They told us that he wouldn't live to be 24 hours. And then after he was a month, he wouldn't live to be a year. So even in that, we saw God's hand working in his life. At and I don't remember how old he was, but at one point they found that he had hepatoblastoma, which is a tumor on his liver. So he had liver cancer. And but I mean, the elders came in, we all laid hands on him, we prayed, and the cancer went away. Like they couldn't find a spot or any, so everything was gone. And then about the 4-year mark, the cancer came back, and the tumor just continued to grow to the point of it basically suffocated him. You know, his lungs didn't have room to expand. But that is that's the short of the long when it comes to his story.
So I can identify with your son, your oldest. Adrian was my only, and the cancer. So when you heard the word cancer, how was that for you and your wife?
Well, the word cancer always, usually or generally speaking, for most people, it invokes fear. You know, just that word itself, because usually it's a death sentence, you know, depending on the type of cancer and when the cancer is found, you know, whether it has metastasized, you know, if you're, you know, stage 3, stage 4, those type of things. So, and then with him being so young, it was, you know, and with the pre-existing health conditions. So it just made it very, touch and go. And, you know, just a situation where you weren't sure which way it would go.
What kind of kid was Trey?
He was full of life. He would laugh. He liked to play. He was very flirty with his teachers. So he loved attention. He didn't take a whole lot of mess when his older brother Joshua would mess with his younger brother. Joshua would mess with him. Like he'd grab him by the neck. I have pictures of him like grabbing him by the neck and stuff like that. So, you know, full of life. We tried to honor that because, you know, when he was first born and even the times that he was in and out of the hospital, you basically end up living in the hospital, like either at the NICU or the PICU, and you're there all the time, you know. And so being there during the holidays and, you know, missing family, not being around family, it was difficult. So after he passed, we started a thing where we partnered with Build-A-Bear and we partnered with Emporium, and then the Ace and TJ show, they got on board because I had a lot of friends in radio at that time. And just a lot of people came on board and sponsored bears, and we got all these bears together and we would go and deliver them, you know, for Christmas to let families know that they were not forgotten during those times. Yeah.
In and out of the hospital. Do you ever think about where did you get the strength from to endure what it was that you had to endure at that time? Because I know we were at St. Jude, so I know what it's like to be in and out of the hospital. And when we would go back for our checkups, I would often ask Adrian, how did we do this? Once God has, you know, had removed us from it, how did we do this? So do you think about those times? Where did you get the strength from to endure what it was that you had to endure taking care of a sick child?
Not at the time. I don't think it was until after he passed. You know, when he was born, I was full-time ministry pastoring. So some things were second nature. Also being a military veteran, you know, being in the Army, like some things you just get in the go mode and you don't think about it. You have to get the mission completed and you don't think about it. You just do what has to be done. Yeah.
How about your wife? How did this affect you? Because you had, how many more kids did you have?
Well, at the time I had 2, when he was born, I had 2 older daughters. Then my wife and I, we had 2 more boys before Trey passed. And then when we found out that Trey had passed, we found out that she was pregnant with our daughter, Victoria.
Wow.
So yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
How was it taking care of Trey and having to put so much energy into taking care of him? And then you had the other kids that you had to be parents to as well. How was that?
It was tough. It was tiring. He required, 24-hour care in some points of his life. Then, we had nurses to come in from like Bayada, places like that would, care for him during the day while either one of us worked or, sleeping at night. Because, at any time his pulse oximeter or something like that could go off and you have to get up and, see what's going on with him. It was tough, to say the least. Like, I got completely out of shape. I was almost 300 pounds. I was a size 40 in the waist. And, just caring for someone else, being a caregiver, a lot of times you forget to care for yourself, or you just don't have time to do it,
So you said something about it being tough. And I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times parents that have kids that are sick, they don't believe that they can voice those words, that this is tough, that I'm tired, that this is hard. Because I think some parents believe that they're not, and I don't want to use the word complain, but not supposed to express the other feelings that goes along with it, on top of praying for your child, taking care of a family, having a wife, and all your attention on this one person. What did that do for you mentally?
Well, again, during that time, I didn't really have time to think about it. I don't think we just did it. We got through it. At least I can say that for myself. I can't speak for her. I do know that it affected her deeply in many ways, especially after he passed. And that's when a lot of the thoughts of guilt and shame, or what more could I have done? What could I have done better? That's when the real struggle came in after he passed.
Thank you for all the overwhelming support that you have shown me on the release of my first book, Through It All. And I would like to give a special thank you to all of you that have purchased your copy of Through It All. I would like to read a review to you. Hey Gail, I just finished reading your beautiful book. God has done some amazing transformation in your life. You are definitely a testament. Love you, girl. Thank you. If you purchase your book, and once you finish reading your copy of Through It All, please leave me a review, or better yet, a short video snippet of you telling your takeaways from Through It All. There are so many girls and women that are suffering in silence. They need to know that no matter what it is that they've gone through, no matter what it is that they're going through, that through it all, that they will be okay. And if you haven't purchased your copy of Through It All, let's get the word out there. Through it all, that you can still stand. Through it all, you can still thrive. Through it all. Thank you.
How did you combat those feelings? Or were you able to combat them?
To a certain extent. Again, like I said, being in ministry, pastoring, it took a toll on my family in the sense that I feel like my ex-wife, because we're no longer married. And I think a big portion of the reason why we're not married is, dealing with that. Like, people don't understand how grief and things like that affect you and affect relationships. And we just didn't have the tools to work it out, even though we went to Rogers Christian Counseling and we tried to work it out. But, you know, there was a feeling that I was there for other families during their times of loss and need, more so than I was there for my own family during, you know, times of loss and need. And that was the balance with ministry, like being a good pastor versus being a good husband and a good father, and which really formulates how I approach ministry now and most things in life. Like, you know, my kids will tell you, like, for the most part, like, I try to put them first and foremost before anything. Because I don't want my testimony to be like, oh, he has a great church, but then his kids don't have anything good to say about him, you know.
And it's so interesting that you said that, because my first guest for the month of June, Pastor Jermaine Nichols, he pretty much said the same thing that you said, because his wife had a miscarriage. And he said that he was there for the church, but didn't necessarily know how to be there for her. And it caused complications between their marriage as well. And when you think about couples, because men and women grieve differently.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when the grief has to do with the birth of a child. Because we don't know what it is to carry a child, whereas the woman has carried this child for, you know, typically 9 months, maybe, you know, give or take more or less. But even if it's a premature birth by many months, whether, you know, second trimester, whatever the case may be, this woman has carried this baby for X amount of months. And that's something that a man could never, ever identify with. Even being pregnant and, you know, for a couple of weeks, like we can't identify or associate with that.
I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad you're speaking out, because so many men, when they lose a child, they don't speak out on their hurt. They don't speak out on the guilt or shame that they may have. So for a man that's listening now, let me go back. For you as a father that lost your oldest son, what type of feeling was that? Because I know a lot of people may say, well, what does it feel like to lose a child? How did it feel to you to lose your son?
It was so many feelings that at the time I couldn't identify, because I didn't have the proper tools. And I have more tools in my tool bag now because I have been through counseling. And I know this show is about survival. So not only did I survive that, but I've also survived addiction. And like I said, it's easy to say this happened and that's why I started drinking heavily or whatever the case may be. But, you know, just even past traumas, not even realizing that I had PTSD from the military. Like that wasn't diagnosed until around the time that my son had passed away. So I'm dealing with PTSD, undiagnosed PTSD, undiagnosed bipolar disorder, all while I'm pastoring, right? So the bipolar was a result of the PTSD being untreated for so many years, which led to anxiety, which led to depression. So now and not knowing I'm depressed, now when my son passes, it's just another layer of depression on us. And what happened was, generally speaking as people, but especially I'm speaking from the perspective of a Black male, we have three emotions, right? We're either happy, sad, or mad. And that's like, we have a coloring book and we only have three colors to color with. I'm either happy, I'm mad, or I'm sad.
Three primary colors.
Sometimes it's right. And sometimes it's grief. Sometimes it's disappointment. Sometimes it's bitterness. But when you don't have the tools or the vocabulary to express that, but I have a counselor, I have a social worker, I have a psychologist, I have a psychiatrist to this very day. I've been hospitalized. I've been, not just outpatient treatment, but also inpatient treatment, where like I've been to the psych psych hospital. Just because all these things came crashing in, and at the time not knowing how to deal with it. So I felt what I thought I felt was anger. I thought I was mad at God, but really it was grief and anguish that I felt. But I did not know how to communicate that. And I did not know how to deal with my grief. I didn't know how to become like the Bible says Jesus was acquainted with grief. I didn't know how to become acquainted with my grief. And the only thing I wanted to do was get rid of it. And, how do we as humans find comfort? We run to pleasure, and that pleasure could be sex. That pleasure could be drinking. It could be drugs. It could be, I bought 3 motorcycles in one year, just whatever I could do to run away. But what happens is what we find out that what happens when we try to run away from our sorrows or our pain without dealing with it, we only create more sorrow and more pain. Rather just sitting there and dealing with it, we create more. And then it becomes this vicious cycle. So
for a person that is experiencing some of the things that you said that you experienced, and you're one of the first of all, you're the only man that I've spoken to that agreed to come on and just talk about grief about loss of a child. Like I said, Pastor Nichols, he talked about it through, from the miscarriage perspective, but losing a child and the PTSD, because I've asked other men that were in the service to come on, and they said it was a trigger for them. And I do respect that, and I understand that as well. So thank you for that. So when you said we have all these past traumas, and then it just takes one thing, how do you feel that we can do better, especially in our community, with learning how to identify with the traumas and calling it what it is? What it is. Well, first of all, I like that term. And the reason why I like that term, when people say it is what it is, for most people, it's not. You know what I mean? If you tell somebody it is what it is, like, I don't want to date you no more. It is what it is. The person might say, well, it is what it is. And then, but it's really not, because then they want all this closure, and why is it this way? Or why is it that way? And I think that is the key. Like, it just has to be what it is. Like, because I think as people, especially as Christians, we love to ask the question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? And that is in my opinion, that is the absolute worst perspective that we could take. The perspective should be, why is it that God lets good things happen to bad people? Because when we say, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people, we automatically assume that we are inherently good, but we're not, if we believe what Scripture says. So everything that happens to us that's good, we did not deserve it, right? And so just being able to, have a moment in time with my child was a good thing. And maybe I should focus on that more so than the loss or the hurt, or why would God allow this to happen to me? And realizing that the Bible says that this light affliction is working for us a far greater weight of glory, right? Of eternal glory. So when we just begin to process these things and realize that Jesus was a man of sorrows, that he was acquainted with grief, and the way he dealt with that was through compassion, right? So we have to have compassion for other people, as like me having compassion towards you, but even more so, we have to have compassion for ourselves, right? Because we can have all this negative self-talk, and we can beat up on ourselves, and, we can discredit ourselves. And through all of that, everything that I've been through,
even being, as a child, being inappropriately touched. I know Pastor Kirk, he talked about that in his, his show. But like, these are things that I would share with the congregation that I pastored, years ago. But, those things, and just everything that we deal with or that we've gone through, we have a tendency to disqualify ourselves. But God chooses to use us anyway. And so we have to be compassionate with each other and ourselves.
That's so good, because Vacation Bible School, that's what we talked about last night. And I'm working with the 16 through 18-year-olds. And the word was compassion. Just showing compassion, because God showed compassion to us. And a lot of times we do have to show compassion to ourselves, because when you talked about the woulda, coulda, shouldas, it was just a couple of days ago, an incident happened, and I started beating myself up about something I felt I could have done differently, with Asia. But then I had to realize, I think about all the things that I did get right. And we have to get those negative thoughts out of our heads, because if we allow them to consume us and take over, it could lead to the depression. It could lead to the vices. It could lead to the alcoholism, the drug abuse, or men abusing women, or women abusing men. It can lead to so many things if we don't show ourselves grace the way that God showed us. And you said about, when you talked about being a kid inappropriately touched, have you forgiven? Have you forgiven the perpetrators that took away?
For sure. Oh man. Okay, you I went out a little bit. Did you hear the question? Okay. Yeah, I answered it, but I can re-answer it for you.
Yes, re-answer.
Yes, I absolutely have forgiven those individuals.
Have you forgiven yourself from when the passing of your son and feelings or the anger that you had? Have you forgiven yourself for those, or have you asked God for forgiveness? Or better yet, and you answered it, because your story reminds me of David. It reminds me of David when David's son died, and how David said he fasted and he prayed. And I remember doing the same thing. He fasted and he prayed for God to heal his son. And we all know it doesn't matter what it is that we go through, God can heal if that's what he chooses to do on this side. And then after his son died, he took off his clothes and he had to live again. He said, I will go to him. He would never return to me.
Right.
Do you have that perspective now?
I did. I did have that. I've had that perspective for a while. I think what troubled me so much was my son died during Holy Week. And we buried him on Good Friday, and I was right back in the pulpit a couple of days later that Sunday, on Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, whatever, a person wants to call it, preaching about how good God was and how God had raised his son from the dead. So there was all of this commotion and contradiction inside of me. And like I said, just all those things building up, which led me to walk away from ministry. Never really thinking I would be back in ministry. And I happened to, I can't say happened to. I went to see my daughter, because I have a 7-year-old daughter. She'll be 8 at the end of this week. I went to Brown Chapel AME Zion Church to hear her say her Easter speech. And Pastor Smith, Dr. Othel Smith, preached a sermon that touched my heart. And it just, every time I would go inside that church, I would just start weeping uncontrollably. And he said something to me. He said, you might have thought you was done with God, but God is not done with you. And something else that hit home that same week was I was talking to some young ladies on a job that I was working. And I snapped on one of them, and it wasn't like a harsh snap. She asked me, had I placed my order yet? And I just turned and looked at her. I said, well, did you place your order? And she was like, excuse me type of attitude. And so the other young lady, she said, can I ask you a question without you getting offended? And I was like, sure. She said, how long ago has it been since your son passed? And I froze in my tracks. I knew it couldn't have been nothing but the Spirit of God, because it had been 18 years to that exact week that he had passed. And I didn't realize like your body carries trauma like that. Your body remember. You may not consciously remember, but subconsciously your body remembers. It does. The central nervous system. It's crazy. So I had been carrying all of that and act like I had been in a nasty mood, I guess you could say, a grumpy mood. And it was apparent, and I wasn't even aware.
Wow. Yeah.
Whew.
God is intricate.
Very.
God is all knowing, and he knows what we need when we need it.
Yes, it's my book. Through It All, Gail Estella. This book has 6 powerful chapters, offering a quick and meaningful read filled with uplifting and empowering insights. Let's take a look. Here's the front. Through It All, Gail Estella. True Vine Publishing. And in the back, there's a place for you to take notes. You're going to want to take notes. I'm an author. I am an author. Gail Estella, the author. If I can say anything to you, it would be, do not give up on your dreams. Do not give up on your dreams, because they can come true. I am a true testament to this.
Let's talk about crying. Do you cry?
All the time. I'm the worst. I am the worst, especially when I'm getting up to preach. If I'm not crying before the sermon, I'm definitely crying after the sermon. And I was kind of that way years ago, but more so now, because of, understanding God's grace, right? How much he loves us. And it's never about us. We say things like, when I found God, or what, like, no, we wasn't even looking for God. God found us. Like, I wasn't even thinking about God. Because I promise you, like the kids say, because baby, I was not thinking about God. And even now, like in my study of the word, when I used to, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with reading the word of God this way, but a lot of times we go to the Bible with our problems, or we go to the Bible looking for ourselves specifically, or we're trying to make a story about us. So for example, with David and Goliath, so many times, like we want to be David fighting Goliath, right? We pick up these 5 stones and we're fighting Goliath in our life. But I don't see that story that way anymore. The way I see that story is I'm actually King Saul at the best. And probably more so, I'm just one of the one of the guys in the army, just some unknown coward in the army that's cowering alongside of King Saul. And Jesus is David, and he goes before me and fights my battles. It's not me slaying the giant. It's Jesus slaying my giants, right? Even in the garden, before I go to that thought, when I approach the Bible now, I look at it. This is God's story. And what does God want me to see? And where is Jesus present in this story, whether it's the Old Testament or the New Testament? Yes. And even like say from the very beginning, right? The Bible says, it teaches us that the Lamb of God was slain before the foundations of the world, right? Because my young theology, I used to understand, and I may not have voiced it this way, but somewhere deep down inside me, I probably believed it, that God had created this perfect creation. Somehow the devil slipped in and he tricked God. And so now God has to figure out a way to fix everything. So then he comes up with this plan to sacrifice his son to win us back. But that's not the case at all, because the Bible says even before any of that was created, from the foundation, the plan has always been to sacrifice Jesus, right? So when you take that knowledge and you go to the garden, right, and he tells Adam, he doesn't tell Adam, if you eat from this tree. He basically tells Adam, when you eat from this tree. He already knew Adam would eat from the tree, but he loved Adam enough to create him anyway. He could have prevented all that by not creating Adam. But he says, for in the day that you eat this, you will surely die. Not if you eat it, but when you eat it, right? So we know how that story goes. And then Adam and Eve are somewhere hiding, which goes back to my original point. They were not looking for God. They never went searching for God. They were, in fact, hiding from God. And secondly, God came looking for them. They did not ask for forgiveness. They did not repent, right? So it's never, our salvation has nothing to do with us searching for God, looking for God. It has nothing to do with us asking for forgiveness. It has nothing to do with us repenting. It has everything to do with God's Spirit speaking to us in turn to speak to him, right? That's what grace is all about. That's God's grace. He showed up looking for Adam and Eve in the garden like he did every day. He came and said in the cool of the day, looking for Adam and Eve. And he says, where are you? Where are you? You know, he's looking for a relationship. He's looking for communion with us. And again, it's not about anything that we've done. You know, before they did any of those things, God came looking for them and he covered them. And, you know, there was some consequences, but God still came looking for them.
He still came. I'm in the book of Jeremiah right now. And
the weeping prophet.
The third chapter. And God compared the Israelites to an adulterous bride, that they were committing adultery with idols and all the things that they were doing against him. But he still pleaded with them to come back to him.
Yes.
Even though they had done all these things, he still told them, if you just come back to me, I will bless you this way, that way, that way. And when you said not looking, God does go looking for us, because the Israelites, they're doing their own thing. They're having fun. They're not honoring God. They're, fornicating. They're sleeping with whomever. They're worshiping Baal and other types of idols, Baal, any type, other types of idols. And God is so sad and hurting. And I thought this morning, I'm like, God, you really, really care for us. Regardless of what it is that we're doing, you still plead for us to come back and you still go seeking us. So it's so ironic that you said that, because this morning I was reading my scripture. I'm like, Dad, you do come looking for us, even in our mess. You still come looking for us, and you're willing to give us grace, and you're willing to forgive and show compassion.
Show compassion. just like Hosea, God sent Hosea, go get your wife, go clean her up, and that's what he does.
Time after time after time. Whoa. This is good. So when we think about vices, the alcoholism, what led you to admit that you had a drinking problem? And when did the acceptance come in? And when did you decide to do something about it?
When I was talking to my counselor once, and she flat out told me that I was an alcoholic. And I was like, no, I'm not. I get up and go to work and I do this and do that. And she's like, you're a functioning alcoholic. And so it started to make me think. And then I went through a sobriety program. And what nobody told me in the sobriety program is that if you are an alcoholic, you're not supposed to stop drinking cold turkey. That it can kill you if you stop drinking cold turkey. Mm-hmm. And I went cold turkey. And when my body went through so many different changes. I had highs, I had panic attacks. Like, they legit thought I was having a heart attack. They had me hooked up to the EKG, and everything was saying I was having a heart attack until they checked for these certain proteins in my blood that say, no, it's not a heart attack. It was just anxiety attack. And it's like, after the fact, they tell me, oh yeah, it's not like cigarettes. You just can't stop cold turkey. Like, you have to wean yourself off of it. I guess like barbiturates or whatever. So like they said, you can quit tobacco or cocaine cold turkey, but alcohol is not that way, because your body really and truly becomes dependent on it.
The physical part.
Yeah. So.
How long have you been sober?
Well, I have started back drinking, so I don't know if that means I'm not sober anymore. Do I get sloppy drunk every day like I used to and go get on a motorcycle and go racing because secretly I had a death wish? No, I don't do those type of things. Okay. But I feel like for the most part, I can drink socially. And I probably started back drinking maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Okay. But I went through the sobriety program in 2000, and it was either 14 or 15, somewhere in there. I'm not sure, but I went through the program, with the VA when I was doing all of my, I did cognitive processing therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and just a lot of anger management, because I had a really bad temper. I would pop up on people. I would show out on people. I would turn the bar out and get into scuffles or arguments or whatever, turn out family functions just because somebody disrespected me. I wasn't having it. I wasn't tolerating it. But now I just smile and think them.
So I have to ask this question. When you say the anger issues and the alcoholism.
Yes.
Have you ever hit a woman?
Never. I've never hit a woman in my life. And that's because I grew up watching my dad be physically abusive with my mom. So I vowed that I would never hit a woman. I have had to restrain a woman before, whether it was right or wrong, whether or not she was hit me was right or wrong. That's a discussion for another day. Did I do something to provoke her? Was I maybe acting asinine or, not coming home when I should have been coming home or something like that, but actually to strike a woman, I've never done that. I think I was 19 years old. I was either 18, 19 years old. I was in the Army. I got into an argument with my girlfriend and I stood up, and I'm a tall guy, six at the time, 6'4", 6'5", I'm starting to shrink now because my disc got compressed. But I stood up and I raised my voice in a threatening and demeaning way. And I saw the horror in her eyes. And I knew that's because I saw that same look in my mom's face. And I mean, I've tried to jump on that, even as a little kid, maybe 4th, 5th grade, trying to jump in and help my mom and, getting beat up myself. So, but I just knew I never wanted to be that person. Right. So I never wanted to hit a woman. I think it's lame. especially when it's, someone that's smaller, less powerful. I don't want to say weaker, but, someone that just can't properly defend themselves, So I just that's never been my thing. Mm-hmm. I walk out before and honestly, Gail, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off right there. Most people anybody can tell you that I've been in a relationship with, I barely raise my voice. I don't argue. I'm not going back and forth with you, especially with a woman. And I don't want to sound chauvinistic or anything like that, but with most men, I'm not going back and forth. Like, I'm just not doing it. But I don't want to argue. I don't want to go back and forth. And I don't raise my voice often. I barely raise my voice at my kids. I give them a look. I say it once or twice, and that's it. So I just don't ever want to be a threatening presence in anybody's life. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm ready, willing, and able to defend myself.
If you need
if I need to.
If needed. Yeah. So I talked about seeing you and you look different.
Yes.
And you were the same person, but it was something about your spirit.
Yes.
You talked about the therapy and all the type of treatments that you've gone through and all the things that you've done to work on yourself. How do you feel about Alvin today compared to maybe 6 or 7 years ago?
Man, 6 or 7 years ago, I honestly could not look myself in the mirror. Like if I'm brushing my teeth or something like that, just to make eye contact with myself in the mirror, I could not do it because I was ashamed of who I was and how I was living. And maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But definitely sometime over the past 10 years during that time, just not being able to look myself in the eyes because I just felt like I wasn't living up to God's standard, even though I wasn't thinking of it in those terms. But just knowing that I wasn't being the person and or man that I was supposed to be. Even with my youngest daughter, it was such a shameful moment for me to have a child out of wedlock, coming from being this quote unquote prestigious pastor in the area, running for city council before my son passed away, being on all these different boards and commissions, for the city of Rock Hill, having various radio shows. So I just felt it was just so much shame that the enemy was pouring on me. And I was like, okay, I got this child out of wedlock. And what is so crazy is the thing that we are the most shameful of, or the thing that we're trying to hide, is what God uses to bring us to deliverance. Adam and Eve, they're hiding, and God, while they're hiding. And so this thing, the situation, the circumstance that I was ashamed of, ended up being the same situation. My daughter, if it had not been for her, I wouldn't be in the place I am now. I would not be restored. I would not be in ministry, because of the love that I have for her. I love her so much, just going to support her, to hear her Easter speech, to see her do her Easter speech, get in, get out. That was my plan. But, God has something, else in store for me, A couple of weeks ago in Sunday school, the story was about Jacob and how Jacob had tricked Esau for his birthright, and which we all know, in which our pastor was trying to get us to see that it was his birthright all along. God had promised it to him. And even if we don't see that part of the story, when Jacob, when he's so exhausted that he falls asleep on a rock, right? God shows up for him in a dream. So if it wasn't his birthright, God wouldn't have showed up to reassure him that, I'm for you, that I'm with you, and that, I'm going to bless you, and not only you, but all the families of the earth, which is the same promise that was given to his father and to his grandfather before him. But what is so interesting to me in that story is how incredibly tired do we have to be to fall asleep on a rock, like just running from our mess, just. And again, like we know that Jacob, it was his birthright. It was sold to him. And people could say he tricked his brother into to selling it to him, but his brother still didn't have to sell it. Because if he didn't despise it, he wouldn't have sold it. And then, him and his mom dressed him up to trick his dad, who was blind, so a lot of people say that he did some underhanded things. So we do know that there are some things that Jacob probably has done, like all of us, and we just get tired of running from our mess. And he hits rock bottom basically and falls asleep on a rock. And it just reminds me of how rock bottom I hit. If I can share this story with you, how God had been trying to get my attention for those 12 years that I was out of ministry, been in and out of jail, right? But nothing serious, just in a holding cell. So I told you I deal with PTSD, and, I've been on all types of medicine, Prozac, Zoloft. Even when I was in treatment, they put me on lithium. I've been on Wellbutrin, valproic acid, all these different type of medications, and they have side effects. Well, people will say, well, you should try marijuana, but I've never been a marijuana smoker. Because every time I've tried it, marijuana makes me paranoid when I smoke it. Well, now, fast forward, to the 2020s, the end thing now is edibles. So I said, let me try, try edibles. So just taking a small piece of an edible took enough of the edge off for me where I didn't have these thoughts of anxiety, and it just it calmed my nervous system where I could just function normally at work without being on high alert. Because I'm the type of person, I'm in the barbershop, somebody walks in with a book bag, I'm like, yo, what's in the book bag? Or if I'm in the movie theater, I'm like, yo, no, y'all listen, we're sitting here. We're not sitting over there. And I'm just terrorizing my family. I go to Walmart. I got to patrol around Walmart before I shop, just because I got to make sure ain't nobody in here with a gun or going to do a mass shooting. And if it was, what can I do if it's a bomb in the book bag? But anyway, I said, okay, I'm going to start making edibles. So I figured out how to take the marijuana, break it down, infuse it into butter, and I take the butter and I started making treats. And so if I had a chocolate chip cookie, I might eat a piece of a quarter piece of the cookie before I go to work. So I started sharing with people the effects that it was having on me. People's like, oh, you do that? I was like, yeah. So can you make me this? Can you make me that? I had a thriving edible business. And I shared with the Sunday school class, for all intents and purposes, let's not brush over this, and let's not try to make it be what it's not. I was a drug dealer. And I was to the point where I was buying large amounts of marijuana to fund this business. So I have a friend who is in law enforcement. He's actually a federal law enforcement agent. And he wanted me to make him some regular brownies. He had no idea that I was, at least I don't think so, but he had no idea that I was making these illegal brownies. It was my birthday. I was supposed to deliver these brownies to him. He's calling. Where are you at? I'm over here waiting on you. Da, da, da. I'm rushing because I got this whole day planned out, and I'm living out of control, a neck full of gold, and just doing what I am not supposed to be doing. I grab this wrong pan of brownies. I take it to him. He eats, because the brownies are they're bundt cakes, and they're delicious. I said, I didn't figure out how to make them tasteless. You can't taste the marijuana. You can't smell the marijuana. He didn't ate the whole thing. He passes out at work. He goes to the hospital. Yes. I go to jail. First offense, They charge, this is the first drug offense I've ever had. I've never been in any type of trouble in my life other than like, oh, your insurance is out or your license is expired. Mm-hmm. So I go to jail. I see the judge the next day. She tells me that this officer is still in the hospital fighting for his life. So not only am I facing the drug charge, but there's a possibility that it could be a manslaughter charge if he doesn't pull through. At least that's what she tells me. Mm-hmm. First offense. They set my bond $100,000 and I'm facing 10 years. So you would think that would be enough to wake me up. And God kind of got my attention. I slowed down, like, I can't do this no more. Well, when I got out, I still had some, what the streets would call, I still had some work. And I went and picked up the work from somebody. I was like, yo, there's like, no, you can't do it. I was like, yo, I need that because I owe people and I got to pay, you know, these the fees for court and all that stuff. Like, I got to get rid of that. So, and I got rid of that. I got out the drug business, right? But even with that, still kind of tiptoeing around with God, not getting to where I need to get to. I go to jail one more time on a technicality, like basically a court error. I go to jail on a Friday. This particular weekend is Father's Day weekend. I'm in jail Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is Father's Day. And that year, Juneteenth fell on a Monday. So I couldn't even get out of jail on Monday. I ended up staying in jail until Tuesday. But they stuck me in a cell, and I believe it was the only cell in the block that I was in that had a Bible in it.
Wow.
And the Bible was on that bunk and I'm on this bunk. And the first day and night, I just looked at that Bible. I was like, man, I'm not touching that, because I had already, every Bible that I owned, I had taken out of my house and put it in storage. The ones that I hadn't given, I kept some that were sentimental to me, like either my dad had bought me or things of that nature. But the rest of that stuff that I didn't keep, I had given away to other people in ministry because I wasn't going to throw it away or burn it or nothing like that. But I looked at that Bible for almost 24 hours. I'm not touching it. Well, there's no TV, you know, rec is only for an hour, and you're not, and the way they were giving us our recreational time, we were not mingling with each other. So it was nothing to do really but take a shower and then, you know, sanitize your cell. But needless to say, I opened it and started reading, and God just began to speak to me. And that was really the beginning of the change. And the fact that when I was in there, people was like, oh, that's the pastor over there. He a preacher. He ain't supposed to be in here. Like, everybody's like, man, bro, I ain't even preached in 12 years. What are you talking about? Yeah, you ain't supposed to be in here. But that was the last straw for me. I was like, okay, God, like, I hear you. And let me get my act together and do what it is that you're calling me to do.
So how do you feel now?
I feel amazing. I feel unstoppable. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel the presence and the power and the peace of God. I feel more, and when I say unstoppable, I'm not saying like invincible, mm-hmm. but I'm saying free, freedom. Freedom is what I feel. That is the feeling. And it all this ties in because the church that I pastored was a deliverance church. And, you know, our theme was freedom and liberty, like setting the captive free, preaching and proclaiming the year of Jubilee. You know, like every 50 years in Israel where everything was set free. Mm-hmm. That was the foundation of our ministry, was freedom. Like, we wanted people free in their social life, in their emotions, in their physical life, you know, spiritually, every aspect that you could think of. That's how we wanted to see people free. Even remembering one time this lady, she was trying to get her Social Security money, but she wanted to be healed, but she wanted Social Security money, and she was like torn between the two because she couldn't get the Social Security money. And I just like how long you gonna halt between two opinions? Like, make up your mind. Do you want the money or do you want to be healed? And she chose freedom, and she was healed, and she no longer needed to walk around on her walker and her, you know, so Yeah. God is so good.
He is so good. And there's so many things that you said. So we talked about the grief for a person that's suffering with an addiction or a person that's dealing with a mental illness. As a Black man, what would you say to another Black man?
Basically, don't let the stigma keep you from seeking help. And even in that, show compassion. Don't just make everything all about you, because all of us have something. All of us have been through something. And it's easy to walk around and say, woe is me. And it's not even about a comparison thing, but if you stop and think about it, there's probably somebody who has it worse than you. So just have compassion. Put your hand to the plow. God created us to work. When he created this paradise for Adam, he didn't just stick Adam and then say, okay, you can chill and parlay and finesse all the fruit off the tree that you want. He put Adam to work. Like Adam was walking around naming animals, like Adam was given a job. In that depressive state, sometimes it is hard to get up, but the Bible says, love not sleep, or else you will come to poverty. It says, but if you open your eyes, you'll be satisfied with bread, right? So, whatever you can call bread, money, and maybe that's what it's referring to in the scripture, money, food. But you'll be satisfied with blessings if you get up and go to work, and not just like a physical job. I mean, like the work of the ministry, because all of us are called to ministry, not just the pastors, not just the preachers, but you've been called to ministry. This is your ministry. That's why we have what they call the fivefold ministry gifts, right? The apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, the teachers. For what? For the perfecting of the saints. For what? The working of the ministry. So yeah, the saints have been called to ministry as well. So that's the work that I'm talking about when I say get up and go to work. Like, don't just focus on you. Yeah, you may be hurt. You may be disabled physically, mentally, emotionally, but that doesn't mean we just have to, stop and focus on ourselves. We can see a lot of things prosper in our lives.
So could going to work also mean going to therapy to get help?
That's definitely a part of the work. That's definitely a part of the work, and I still do the work daily. In fact, on my home screen on my phone, sometimes I have the 4 agreements on my home screen. And if you've never read that book, I encourage you to read that book. It helped me on my journey. At one point in time, they had that book at Five Below. They were $5 a piece, and I would just buy stacks of them and pass them out and give them to people. And the first agreement says to be impeccable with your word. And that can mean a couple of things. Like, first of all, our talk shouldn't be filthy. And I thank God that he has held my tongue, because that's one thing I haven't fully been delivered from. Like, I still cuss every now and then. So when we're impeccable with our word, we should not use like offensive language, but also it means that we should do what we say. If you say you're going to be here at such and such time, be there at such and such time. Even if you didn't say you were going to be there at such and such time, and you know that it starts at 9, why would you come strolling in at 9:30? So be impeccable with your word. The second one, this one is so big. It says, don't take anything personally. So I could just easily say, oh, well, Gail didn't speak to me today. I don't know why she got an attitude. She thinks she cute anyway. She just got her hair cut and is blonde. She thinks she all of that. I mean, who knows? Like, based on what you said, maybe you were thinking about your daughter today, or even back in the day when you're talking about being in a relationship that was abusive. Somebody could have just knocked you upside your head. Don't take anything personally. And then with that one, the second agreement is like, after we don't take anything personally, we don't make assumptions. So you just don't assume that's the reason. Even if I tell you that's the reason,
That
may not be the reason.
Reason today. Yes.
Right. Well, it's like if I interview for a job and I say, well, you didn't get the job because you're not qualified. But that's the reason I told you. But the real reason could be, I only interviewed you because I was required to interview a Black woman. I already knew I was going to hire Joe, right?
Right.
Just because so never make an assumption. That's the third one. And the fourth one is always do your best. Always do your best. And that's what I try to tell my kids. Like, just do your best. I'm not asking you to get an A. If you can get an A, get an A. But if your best is a B or a C, just do that. But make sure you do your best, because you don't want to walk through life with regrets. Like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that differently. Just always strive to do your best.
Always strive to do. That's good. I think this has been really, really good. We talked about
Thanks for having me.
Trey. We talked about the mental illness. So have you had to go back to make any amends? And if you did, well, let me ask this. Have you made amends to the people that you felt that you needed to make amends to?
I have. And I've gone back to people and apologized for the way I've behaved, the way I've conducted myself. Like I said, at family functions, I went to my cousin, I was like, please invite me back to your house. I won't show out anymore. I won't turn out. I won't turn over the tables. So please have me back. And apologize to my mom, apologize to my ex-wife and, some people in her family. I've definitely apologized to my kids. Because so many times I have felt like I wasn't the best dad that I could have been to them. But I mean, they love me so dearly, and I notice just the way that they show up for me. And I like, just, again, not being compassionate with myself, telling them like, I wish, y'all could have had a better daddy, and just letting these negative emotions flood my headspace, until that's one great thing about these phones, right? So the memories will pop up, and I'll see all these pictures and videos of us like when they were younger. And I forgot, like, every Friday night after work, and this is even while I was pastoring, every Friday night when I would come home, or Friday evening I would come home from work, we would put music on. We would put secular music on, rap music. It would be clean lyrics, but we would dance for an hour or more. We would just dance in the middle of the living room. And, just forgetting about that, you think about all the things that, what I could have done, what I should have done. And realizing that we did have a lot of happy moments and times together. And they try to reassure me of that, but still, I have gone to them and other people and just apologized for some of my behavior. And not to make an excuse, but to give them a reason. Like, I was this way because I didn't realize that I was struggling with depression, or that I was still struggling with my grief. But, I hope you find in your heart to, forgive me. Yeah.
Are you able to look at yourself in the mirror now?
Of course. I am. I'm proud of what I see. I'm proud of what God is doing in my life. And just, it amazes me, that he would, choose somebody as messed up as me, to do the things that he's doing. So, yeah.
And we're going to go back and we're going to close after this. You said, to honor Trey, you donated bears. So what do you do now? It's been 18 years. How many years has it been since he passed?
Let me think. I think it's 19 now.
19.
Yes, it'll be, April, May, 19 years.
So what do you and your family, or what do you still do to honor him, to honor his memory and his legacy?
I think about him a lot. I probably have not been to his grave in over 10 years, because it's empty out there. It's really nothing there. The last time I went, my son Joshua and I, we went, and like I said, it's just empty out there. So it's really no purpose. If anything, his spirit resides with me. I do want to get back to doing the teddy bears, because other than that, there's nothing that we have done to honor his legacy, other than, just remembering the times, especially when, on the day that he was born and the day that he died, like those days, you remember. And again, like I said, the memories pop up on my phone and, I'll smile, but to be doing something to honor him like we had done in the past, we're not currently doing anything, but that is something that I have thought about resurrecting. But I need to start my 501c3 again, because that's how we were able to gather a lot of donations outside of individual donations with the 501c3.
And this is something that I just thought about. You're honoring him by allowing God to change you. You're honoring him by allowing yourself to be a different man. You're honoring him by being able to look in the mirror. And you're honoring him by being a good father to his siblings.
I receive that.
Yes. So, is there anything that you would like to say before we close?
I think I said it enough. Other than the fact that I definitely appreciate you for the opportunity. I thank you for thinking enough for me to have you on your show. And again, like I've told you, I think you're such a beautiful person inside and out. I've admired your drive, your business acumen, as well as, I miss seeing you walking around the neighborhood. I was like, well, I haven't seen Gail in a long time. Anybody who puts a priority on their physical wellness, is an inspiration to me. So like I said, at one point, I was super overweight. I'm back down. I fluctuate now between a 36 and a 34. My weight can be anywhere from 195 to 210. But every time I go to the doctor now, they say my blood pressure is like a 17-year-old. My A1C sometimes will be close to the borderline, but never over. But diabetes runs in my family, so I'm doing well, keeping that at bay. My cholesterol is good. So anybody that places a priority on their health, is an inspiration to me.
Thank you. And there's something you said that you protect yourself today. When we had our phone conversation, you said that you protect yourself. Tell the audience ways that you protect yourself.
Well, first of all, just having having devotion time with God, right? Prayer, reading the word. Those are primary ways of protecting yourself. Fasting is another way. You mentioned that earlier. But also just being careful of the people that are around you, just keeping a close-knit circle. Like I've had to remove myself from situations, whether that was a job or whatever the case may be. Because I can't let the negative talk or whatever bring me down or bring me back to a place that I don't want to be in any longer. So those are ways I protect myself. Also, just trying to eat healthy is another way of protecting yourself. If you put junk in, you're going to get junk out. You're going to feel bad, and you're not, then you're going to end up spiraling, going into depression or whatever the case may be. So those are the major ways that I protect myself.
Thank you. Thank you for a great interview. I have 3 questions. 1,
yes.
3 answers. This is the Gail Estella Survival Studio. Excuse me. This is the Gail, that's my hair salon, my old hair salon. This is the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Tell me 3 ways that you have survived or that has helped you to survive.
3 ways that I have survived, and all of them, I will say, is by the grace of God. It's just been his his provision and protection in my life. But I have survived sexual abuse, molestation. I've survived military trauma, and I've survived the loss of my, really, I could say it's my family, which would include my ministry, my son, my marriage, which in turn was really my identity. All of that was my identity. And I did not know who I was. But thanks be unto God, he showed me that it's more than prayer. Sometimes you pray. Sometimes you take a pill. Sometimes you go to therapy. Sometimes you be admitted to the hospital. But through it all, those are the three major things I've survived in my life. And I just thank God that he kept me through those hurting times, even when I struggled with the addiction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was such a good interview. So stay tuned for the whole month of July. As my guests, they're going to talk about freedom. What does freedom mean to you? And as Miss Toya Knowles said, are you willing to do the work to gain your freedom? Have a great day, everyone. Bye.